The papers sat on the kitchen table like a coiled snake. Natalie stood in the doorway of her own kitchen, grocery bags cutting into her palms, staring at the manila envelope that had been placed carefully on the table she had scrubbed clean just this morning. Her 7-year-old son Tyler was still in the car, waiting for her to come back and help him with his wheelchair. She had run inside quickly to unlock the door, never expecting to find her entire life dismantled and packaged in legal-sized documents. Her hands shook as she set down the groceries. The envelope had her name written across it in Brandon's handwriting. Bold, clear, final. She knew before she opened it. A wife always knows. The paper inside was crisp, official, stamped with a lawyer's seal. Petition for dissolution of marriage. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes, but she forced herself to read every line. Brandon Michaels was divorcing Natalie Michaels. Irreconcilable differences. He wanted the house sold, assets split, and minimal child support for Tyler. Minimal child support for their disabled son. The front door opened behind her. Brandon walked in and he wasn't alone. A woman followed him, younger, prettier, wearing expensive perfume that filled the kitchen with a scent that made Natalie want to vomit. The woman's hand rested possessively on Brandon's arm. "Good you found them," Brandon said, his voice flat and businesslike as if he were discussing a work presentation rather than the destruction of their 10-year marriage. "This is Stephanie. We wanted to tell you together." Natalie's mouth opened but no sound came out. She looked at Stephanie, who had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable but not apologetic. This woman knew. She knew about Tyler, about the family she was helping to destroy, and she had done it anyway. "Tell me what?" Natalie finally managed, though she already knew. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, distant and hollow. Brandon shifted his weight, crossing his arms. "I'm in love with Stephanie. I have been for 8 months. I can't do this anymore, Natalie. This life, this marriage, it's not what I want. It's too hard. Tyler's condition, the medical bills, the constant appointments, I never signed up for this." "You're his father," Natalie whispered. "He needs you. He needs professional care that I can't provide," Brandon said coldly. "You're better at all that stuff anyway. The therapy, the doctor visits, the special equipment. I'm not cut out for it. Stephanie and I want to start fresh. We're moving to Portland next month. She got a job offer there and I'm going with her." Natalie grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. "You're leaving? You're leaving us? What about Tyler? What about his surgery next month?" Brandon's jaw tightened. "The surgery is your decision. I never agreed to it. Look, I'll pay what the court makes me pay for child support, but that's it. I need to live my own life. I'm only 33 years old. I can't spend the rest of my life taking care of a kid who will never be normal." The words hit her like physical blows. Stephanie had the grace to look at the floor, but she didn't let go of Brandon's arm. She didn't defend Tyler. She didn't say anything at all. "Never be normal?" Natalie repeated, her voice rising. "He's your son. He's smart and funny and brave and he's fighting every single day. How dare you?" "I've made up my mind," Brandon interrupted. "Sign the papers. Don't make this harder than it has to be. You can have full custody. I don't want to fight you on that. Just let me go." Natalie looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. The man she had married, the man who had cried tears of joy when Tyler was born, the man who had promised to love her in sickness and in health, was gone. In his place stood someone who could abandon his own child because caring for him was inconvenient. "Get out," Natalie said quietly. "I need to pack some things." "Get out," she screamed, and Stephanie jumped. "Get out of this house right now. Both of you." Brandon held up his hands. "Fine. I'll come back tomorrow when you're calmer. Sign the papers, Natalie. There's no point in fighting this." They left, and Natalie stood alone in her kitchen, surrounded by grocery bags full of food she had bought to make Brandon's favorite dinner. She had been planning to surprise him. She had been planning to tell him tonight that she'd gotten a part-time job at the local library to help with expenses. She had been planning to show him Tyler's report card, all A's despite the challenges he faced every day. Instead, her husband had just walked out the door with another woman, leaving behind nothing but legal documents and broken promises. A car horn honked outside. Tyler. She had forgotten about Tyler. Natalie ran outside, wiping her tears quickly. Her son sat in the back seat of their old sedan, his wheelchair folded in the trunk, looking at her with concerned eyes that were far too old for his 7 years. "Mom? Are you okay? You were gone a long time." She opened his door and unbuckled him, lifting him carefully. He was getting heavier, harder to carry, but she would carry him for the rest of her life if she had to. "I'm fine, baby. Just fine. Let's get you inside. Was that Dad? I saw his car. And there was a lady with him. Natalie's heart cracked a little more. Yes, that was Dad. Is he coming to my therapy appointment on Thursday? She carried Tyler into the house, settled him on the couch, and knelt in front of him. His dark eyes searched her face, and she knew she couldn't lie to him. Tyler had cerebral palsy, but there was nothing wrong with his mind. He was sharp and observant, and he deserved the truth. Dad is going away for a while, she said carefully. He needs to work on some things. He's leaving us, isn't he? Tyler asked, and his voice was small and hurt. Because of me. Because I can't walk right. Because I'm too much trouble. No. Natalie grabbed his hands. No, Tyler, don't you ever think that. This has nothing to do with you. You are perfect exactly as you are. Dad is making a choice, and it's the wrong choice, but it's his choice. Not yours. Never yours. Tyler nodded, but tears rolled down his cheeks. All the kids at school have dads who come to their games and stuff. I never had that. And now I won't have a dad at all. Natalie pulled him into her arms and held him while he cried. She cried too, silently, into his hair. She cried for the father he deserved and didn't have. She cried for the marriage she had believed in that turned out to be a lie. She cried for the future she had imagined that would never happen. But even as she cried, something hard and cold formed in her chest. Determination. Anger. Strength. Brandon had made his choice. He had chosen comfort over commitment. He had chosen a new woman over his own son. He had chosen the easy path over the right one. Fine. Natalie would show him exactly what he had thrown away. She would show him what she was capable of. She would build a life for Tyler that was so full of love and opportunity that her son would never feel less than, never feel like a burden, never feel unwanted. And Brandon? Brandon would live the rest of his life knowing he had walked away from the best thing that ever happened to him. She pulled back and wiped Tyler's tears. How about we order pizza tonight? Extra cheese, your favorite? Tyler nodded, trying to smile. Can we watch that superhero movie too? Absolutely. We can do whatever we want now. As she called in the pizza order, the divorce papers still sat on the kitchen table. Natalie glanced at them and made a decision. She would sign them. She would let Brandon go without a fight. She would give him exactly what he asked for. But he would regret it. She didn't know how yet, but she would make sure of it. What Brandon didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that Natalie had received a certified letter just 3 days ago. A letter she hadn't opened yet because she'd been too busy scheduling Tyler's medical appointments and trying to keep their family afloat. A letter from a law firm in Boston regarding an inheritance from a great-aunt she had only met twice in her entire life. The letter sat in her purse, forgotten in the chaos of daily life. Tomorrow she would open it. Tomorrow her entire world would change. But tonight she would sit with her son, eat pizza, watch superheroes save the day, and plan her own kind of rescue mission. Brandon had made the biggest mistake of his life. And Natalie was just getting started. The letter felt heavy in Natalie's hands. She sat at the library during her lunch break, hidden in the back corner where the old encyclopedias gathered dust and no one ever ventured. Tyler was at school, Brandon had packed his things and moved out 2 days ago without a backward glance, and Natalie was alone with the certified letter that had been burning a hole in her purse. The return address read, Morrison, Whitfield and Associates, Estate Attorneys, Boston, Massachusetts. Her great-aunt Patricia had died. Natalie remembered meeting her exactly twice. Once at a family reunion when Natalie was 6, and once at Natalie's college graduation. Aunt Patricia had been eccentric, wealthy, and childless. She had told Natalie at graduation that she reminded her of herself when she was young. Determined, intelligent, and unafraid of hard work. Natalie had sent Christmas cards every year after that, never expecting anything in return. It was just the polite thing to do. Aunt Patricia had sent brief notes back, always ending with, keep being remarkable. Now Aunt Patricia was gone and apparently she had remembered Natalie. With trembling fingers, Natalie opened the envelope. Inside was a letter from an attorney named Robert Morrison. Dear Ms. Natalie Michaels, it is with great pleasure that I inform you that you are the primary beneficiary of the estate of Patricia and Hamilton. Ms. Hamilton passed away peacefully on August 3rd, leaving behind specific instructions regarding the distribution of her assets. To you, Ms. Michaels, she has left the following. Her investment portfolio, currently valued at $97 million. Her real estate holdings, including properties in Boston, New York, and Miami, valued at $34 million. Her art collection, valued at $12 million. Various personal effects and jewelry, valued at $7 million. The total estate value is approximately $150 million after taxes and fees. Ms. Hamilton left a personal note for you which I have enclosed. She requested that you read it before making any decisions about the inheritance. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to begin the transfer process. Time is of the essence, as there are several investment decisions that require your immediate attention. Sincerely, Robert Morrison, Senior Partner. Natalie read the letter 3 times. Then 4. The numbers didn't change. $150 million. Her hands shook so badly that she dropped the letter. She picked it up quickly, looking around to make sure no one had seen, but the library was empty except for Mrs. Chen at the front desk. This had to be a mistake. A scam. People didn't just inherit $150 million. That kind of money didn't exist in her world. Her world was coupon clipping and buying generic brands and praying the car would make it another 6 months. But the letterhead looked official. The law firm was real, she checked on her phone. Morrison, Whitfield and Associates had a website and address, reviews. They were legitimate. With shaking hands she pulled out the second piece of paper. Aunt Patricia's note was handwritten on expensive stationery. My dear Natalie, if you're reading this, I finally kicked the bucket. Good riddance to this old body that stopped cooperating years ago. I've watched you from afar, sweet girl. I know about your son. I know about the challenges you face. I know about the husband who never deserved you. Yes, I had investigators. I'm rich and nosy. Sue me. I never had children of my own. I built my fortune through smart investments and sheer stubbornness. I want you to have it because you remind me of who I was. A fighter. Don't tell anyone about this money. Not yet. People change when money enters the picture. They become sharks circling for scraps. Even family. Especially family. Use this gift wisely. Build something remarkable. Take care of that beautiful boy. And live the life you deserve. Don't waste a single tear on people who walked away from you. They showed you who they were. Believe them. Be remarkable, Natalie. You always were. With love, Aunt Patricia. Yes, buy yourself something ridiculously expensive and impractical. You've earned it. Natalie pressed the letter to her chest and cried. Not tears of sadness, but of relief, of hope, of possibility. Aunt Patricia, whom she barely knew, had seen her. Had believed in her. Had given her a gift that would change everything. $150 million. 3 days ago, Brandon had handed her divorce papers. He had walked away from her and Tyler without a second thought. He had chosen Stephanie and a fresh start in Portland over his own family. He had no idea what he'd just given up. Natalie pulled out her phone and called the law firm with trembling fingers. Morrison, Whitfield and Associates, how may I direct your call? Robert Morrison, please. This is Natalie Michaels. I'm calling about the Patricia Hamilton estate. One moment, please. Classical music played while she waited. Natalie's heart pounded. This was real. This was actually happening. Ms. Michaels. A warm, professional voice came on the line. Thank you for calling. I've been hoping to hear from you. First, let me offer my condolences for your loss. Patricia spoke of you often in her final years. She was quite fond of you. Thank you, Natalie managed. I'm sorry, I'm still processing all of this. Is this real? The amount in the letter? Absolutely real, Robert assured her. Patricia was very specific in her wishes. She wanted you to have full control of the estate. Now, there are some papers you'll need to sign, and I recommend you establish a team immediately. A financial advisor, a tax attorney, and a wealth management firm. I can provide recommendations if you'd like. Yes, please, Natalie said. I don't know anything about managing this kind of money. That's perfectly normal. Most people don't. But Patricia chose you for a reason. She believed in your judgment. Now, I must ask, have you told anyone about the inheritance? Natalie thought about Brandon, already in Portland with Stephanie, thinking he'd escaped a difficult life. No. No one knows. Good. Keep it that way for now. Patricia was right to warn you. Money changes relationships. Take your time. Make smart decisions. Don't rush into anything. They talked for another 20 minutes. Robert explained the process, sent her documents via secure email, and scheduled a meeting for next week in Boston. He recommended a financial advisor named Catherine Price, who specialized in helping sudden wealth recipients. When Natalie hung up, she sat in stunned silence. Her entire life had just changed and no one knew. She was still wearing the same clothes she'd owned for 3 years. She was still working part-time at the library for $12 an hour. She was still driving a car with a broken air conditioner and a dent in the passenger door. But she had $150 million. Her phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Did you sign the papers yet? Lawyer needs them by Friday. Don't drag this out. Natalie stared at the message. Brandon had no idea. He thought he was leaving behind a struggling single mother with a disabled child and mounting medical bills. He thought he'd made the smart choice, the easy choice. He had no idea he'd just walked away from a fortune. Part of her wanted to tell him, just to see his face. Just to watch him realize what he'd lost. But Aunt Patricia's words echoed in her mind, don't tell anyone about this money. Not yet. Aunt Patricia was right. If Brandon knew, he'd fight the divorce. He'd claim he deserved half. He'd manipulate and scheme and try to take what wasn't his. No. He'd made his choice. He chose Stephanie. He chose to abandon Tyler. He chose to walk away. Now he would live with that choice. Natalie typed a response, I'll sign them. I want this over with too. She hit send and immediately called the lawyer Robert had recommended. She needed the best divorce attorney money could buy. She needed to make sure Brandon got exactly what he asked for. Minimal child support, a quick divorce, nothing more. And then she needed to disappear from his radar completely. By the time Brandon realized what he'd done, it would be too late. Natalie opened her laptop and started making lists. She had always been good at planning, at organizing, at making things work with limited resources. Now she had unlimited resources, and she was going to use every single dollar to build a life that Brandon could only dream about. Tyler would have the best medical care money could buy. He would have opportunities that Natalie had never dreamed possible. He would grow up knowing he was valued, loved, and worthy despite what his father had done. And Natalie? Natalie would build an empire. She would become someone. She would show the world what a discarded wife and mother could accomplish when given a chance. Brandon wanted minimal child support? Fine. She'd take it. She didn't need his money. She had her own. Brandon wanted a quick divorce? Perfect. She'd give him one. She wanted him out of her life as fast as possible. Brandon wanted to start fresh in Portland with Stephanie? Excellent. The farther away he was, the better. She pulled up the divorce papers on her laptop and reviewed them with fresh eyes. Brandon was asking for almost nothing in the settlement. He wanted out so badly that he was willing to walk away from any claim to their shared assets, minimal though they were. He just wanted the house sold and the money split. The house was worth maybe $180,000. After the mortgage, they'd each get about $40,000. Brandon probably thought he was being generous, letting her have half. He had no idea she could buy 100 houses like theirs with cash and not even notice the expense. Natalie laughed, a slightly hysterical sound in the empty library corner. 2 weeks ago, she'd been crying over the grocery bill. Today, she was a multimillionaire. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. Her phone rang. Catherine Price, the financial advisor Robert had recommended. Miss Michaels? Robert Morrison asked me to call you. First, congratulations on your inheritance, and second, let's talk about protecting it. I have a few hours free this afternoon if you're available for a video call. Yes, Natalie said immediately. Yes, I'm available. Excellent. I'm sending you a secure link now. We have a lot to discuss. Natalie grabbed her things and hurried to her car. She called her supervisor and said she had a family emergency. It wasn't exactly a lie. This was an emergency, just not the kind anyone would expect. She drove home, her mind racing with possibilities. When she arrived, she sat in her car for a moment, looking at the small house she'd called home for 8 years. Brandon had already taken most of his things. His absence was everywhere. The empty spot in the garage where his car used to park, the missing photo frames, the gaps in the bookshelf. Good. Let him be gone. Let him be erased. She went inside and set up her laptop at the kitchen table. The divorce papers still sat there and signed. She pushed them aside and opened the secure video link Catherine had sent. A woman in her 50s appeared on screen, professional and warm. Ms. Michaels, it's a pleasure to meet you. Now, let's talk about how to turn your inheritance into generational wealth. For the next 3 hours, Natalie learned about investments, trusts, tax strategies, and wealth preservation. Catherine was patient, explaining everything in simple terms, never making Natalie feel stupid for asking questions. The most important thing, Catherine said, is to take your time. You don't have to make all your decisions today. But there are a few immediate actions I recommend. Establish a trust to protect the assets, set up separate accounts, and create a monthly budget. How much do you need to live on? Natalie thought about it. Right now? Maybe $3,000 a month for basic expenses. But Tyler needs surgery soon, and that will cost about $80,000 out of pocket even with insurance. Done and done, Catherine said, typing notes. We'll transfer $100,000 into a personal checking account for immediate needs. The rest stays invested and working for you. With proper management, you should be able to live on the returns alone and never touch the principal. We're talking about $5 to $7 million a year in income, conservatively. Natalie felt dizzy. $5 million a year. She currently made $25,000 a year. Now, Catherine continued, do you have any specific goals? Things you want to accomplish with this money? Natalie thought about Tyler, about all the doors that had been closed to him because they couldn't afford to open them. I want to help other families like mine. Families with disabled children who can't afford good care. I want to build something that matters. Catherine smiled. Then that's exactly what we'll do. Patricia would have loved that. They talked for another hour, making plans, setting goals. When they finally hung up, Natalie felt like she could breathe for the first time in years. The future wasn't terrifying anymore. It was full of possibility. She picked up a pen and signed the divorce papers. Brandon wanted his freedom? He could have it. She didn't need him anymore. She never would again. Natalie waited exactly 2 weeks before making her first move. 2 weeks of smiling at her library job while Catherine and her team set up trusts, accounts, and investment strategies. 2 weeks of driving Tyler to therapy in their old car while a new custom-accessible van sat on order. 2 weeks of living in the same small house while she quietly searched for the perfect new home. Brandon had no idea. He texted occasionally, asking about the divorce papers she'd mailed back signed. He wanted to know when the house would sell. He wanted his $40,000 so he could put a down payment on a condo in Portland with Stephanie. Natalie responded with short, polite messages. Working on it. Lawyer says it takes time. We'll let you know. She wasn't lying. Her lawyer was working on it, just not in the way Brandon expected. On a Tuesday afternoon, Natalie left work early and drove to the expensive side of town. The kind of neighborhood she used to drive through slowly, looking at the houses and wondering what it must be like to live without worrying about every penny. Now she was here to buy one. Her real estate agent, Patricia Coleman, no relation to Aunt Patricia, but Natalie took it as a good sign, met her at a stunning house at the end of a quiet street. It was a single-story home which was perfect for Tyler. Wide doorways for his wheelchair. An open floor plan. A huge backyard with enough space for a therapy pool. This one just came on the market, Patricia said as they walked through the front door. The owner is relocating for work and needs to sell quickly. It's priced at $850,000, but I think we can get it for $800,000 if we move fast. The house was beautiful. Hardwood floors, huge windows, a kitchen that looked like something from a magazine. But what made Natalie's heart race was the bedroom at the back. It was huge, with its own bathroom that was already set up for accessibility. The previous owner's mother had been in a wheelchair. This is perfect, Natalie said. I'll take it. Patricia blinked. Don't you want to see the other houses I have lined up? I have 3 more to show you today. No need. This is the one. How fast can we close? Well, with financing it usually takes 30 to 45 days. I'm paying cash, Natalie interrupted. How fast can we close with cash? Patricia's eyes widened. Cash? For the whole amount? Yes. I want to be in this house within 2 weeks if possible. Patricia pulled out her phone immediately. Let me call the seller's agent right now. A cash offer with a quick close? They'll jump at it. We can probably do $780,000 if you're willing to waive inspection. Done. Draw up the papers. 20 minutes later, Natalie had made an offer. 20 minutes after that, it was accepted. She would close in 10 days. She stood in the empty living room, imagining Tyler's face when he saw his new bedroom. Imagining him using the therapy pool in the backyard. Imagining a life where they weren't cramped and stressed and constantly worried about money. Brandon didn't know. He was in Portland, probably shopping for furniture with Stephanie, thinking about his fresh start. Thinking he'd escaped his responsibilities. Thinking Natalie was still struggling in that small house, trying to figure out how to pay for Tyler's surgery. Let him think it. Natalie drove straight from the house to meet with the principal at Riverside Academy, the best private school in the state for children with special needs. The tuition was $45,000 a year. She used to look at their website and dream. Now she was sitting in the principal's office, filling out enrollment papers. Tyler will love it here, Principal Anderson said warmly. She was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and 30 years of experience. We have a full therapy team on staff, small class sizes, and we focus on helping each child reach their full potential. When would you like him to start? As soon as possible, Natalie said. Next month? We usually have a waiting list, but we just had a family relocate. We can take him on November 1st if that works. Natalie wrote a check for the first semester. $45,000. The amount would have destroyed her bank account 2 weeks ago. Now it was nothing. Principal Anderson looked at the check, then at Natalie with new respect. We're so happy to have Tyler here. Would you be interested in joining our parent board? We're always looking for dedicated parents who want to be involved. I'd love that, Natalie said honestly. She wanted to be part of Tyler's school life. She wanted to know his teachers, his friends, his world. As she left the school, Natalie felt lighter than she had in years. Tyler would have the best education, the best therapy, the best chance at living his fullest life. And Brandon would never know he'd walked away from the money that made it all possible. That evening, Natalie sat Tyler down in the living room. He'd had a good day at school, his regular school, not knowing that in 3 weeks he'd be starting somewhere new. Baby, I need to talk to you about some changes, she said carefully. Tyler's face fell. Is Dad coming back? No, Natalie said. Dad is not coming back. But that's okay because we're going to be just fine. Better than fine. Do you remember Great Aunt Patricia? Tyler scrunched up his face, thinking. The old lady who sent Christmas cards? That's right. Well, she passed away and she left us some money. Enough money that we can move to a new house, a house that will be much easier for your wheelchair. And you're going to start at a new school, a school that has therapists and special equipment and teachers who really understand how to help you. Tyler's eyes went wide. Really? How much money? Enough, Natalie said simply. Enough that you never have to worry about doctors or therapy or anything like that again. Enough that we're going to be just fine. Does Dad know? Natalie paused. No. And I don't want you to tell him. Can you keep a secret? Tyler nodded seriously. He was good at secrets. He'd learned to be, growing up with a father who was embarrassed by him. I won't tell. Is this like superhero secret identity stuff? Natalie smiled. Exactly like that. We're going to live our regular lives, but we have a secret power now. The power to take care of ourselves and help other people too. Cool, Tyler said. Then, more hesitantly, will the new school be better? The kids at my school now, some of them are mean about my wheelchair. Natalie's heart clenched. I know, baby. The new school will be different. All the kids there have different challenges. Some use wheelchairs, some don't. Some have other things they're working on. But everyone understands that being different is okay. When do we move? 2 weeks. Want to come see the new house this weekend? Yes. Tyler pumped his fist. Can I have my own bathroom? You can have your own bathroom. This is the best day ever. Natalie hugged him close. If only Brandon could see this. If only he could see what he'd given up. But he was too busy playing house with Stephanie to care. Her phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Any updates on the house sale? Real estate agent keeps giving me the runaround. Natalie smiled. The real estate agent was giving him the runaround because Natalie had instructed her to. She wanted the divorce finalized before Brandon found out about anything. She wanted him legally cut off from her life before he realized what had happened. She typed back, lawyer says we should have the divorce finalized in another week. Then we can sell the house. The divorce would be final in 3 days. Her lawyer, the best in the state, had fast-tracked everything. Brandon's lawyer, a cheap attorney he'd found online, had no idea what he was dealing with. Once the divorce was final, Natalie would sell the house. She'd give Brandon his $40,000. And then she would disappear from his life completely. New house, new phone number, new everything. He'd never find her unless she wanted to be found. Over the next week, Natalie worked silently and efficiently. She hired a moving company. She transferred Tyler's medical records. She bought new furniture for the new house, the kind of furniture she'd only ever seen in magazines. She set up the therapy pool in the backyard. She bought Tyler a new wheelchair, top of the line, custom made for his needs. She also hired a lawyer to start the process of creating a foundation. The Natalie Michaels Foundation for Disabled Children. Its mission: to provide grants, equipment and support services to families who couldn't afford quality care for their disabled children. She endowed it with $10 million to start. Catherine had been right. With smart investments, Natalie was earning almost $500,000 a month in returns. She could live like royalty and still have millions left over to help others. On the day the divorce became final, Natalie took herself out to lunch at an expensive restaurant downtown. She sat alone at a table, ordered a steak that cost $75, and toasted to her freedom with a glass of wine that cost more than she used to spend on groceries for a week. She wasn't celebrating the end of her marriage. She was celebrating the beginning of her new life. Her phone rang. Robert Morrison, her estate attorney. Natalie, congratulations. The divorce is final. You're a free woman. Thank you, Robert. Now, has he asked any questions? Has he seemed suspicious? Not at all, Natalie said. He just wants his money from the house so he can move on with his life. Perfect. Keep it that way. The less he knows, the better. Now, about the foundation you want to start, I have the paperwork ready. When can you come to Boston to sign? Next week. I'm moving into the new house this weekend, but after that, I'm free. Excellent. Oh, and Natalie? Patricia would be proud of you. The way you're handling this, the way you're protecting Tyler and building something meaningful, it's exactly what she hoped you'd do. Natalie's eyes stung with tears. I wish I'd known her better. She knew you better than you think. She had investigators following your life for years. She knew about Brandon's affairs, yes, plural. Stephanie wasn't the first. She knew about his gambling problem that he hid from you. She knew everything. And she still chose you because she saw your strength. Don't ever doubt that you deserve this. Brandon had other affairs? Multiple affairs? And gambling? Natalie felt sick. How long had he been lying to her? I didn't know about the gambling, she said quietly. Of course you didn't. He was good at hiding it. Patricia's investigators found out he'd racked up about $30,000 in credit card debt that you don't know about. He was planning to leave you with half of it in the divorce. But the divorce papers? Your lawyer made sure you're not responsible for any debt incurred solely in his name. You're protected. He'll have to deal with that debt alone. Natalie leaned back in her chair. Brandon had been planning to saddle her with debt while he ran off to Portland? While she was left to raise their son alone, struggling with medical bills and now his gambling debts too. He really had thought she was nothing. He really had thought he could use her and throw her away. Thank you for telling me, she said. You deserve to know the truth. Now go enjoy your new house and your new life. Brandon made his bed. Let him lie in it. That weekend, Natalie and Tyler moved into their new home. The moving company handled everything, carefully transporting the few belongings they wanted to keep and leaving the rest behind. Tyler's reaction to his new room made Natalie cry. He wheeled himself around, looking at everything, the adjustable desk, the special lift system, the huge TV, the wall of bookshelves. Mom, this is like a room from a movie, he breathed. Is this really all mine? All yours, baby. He wheeled into his bathroom and gasped. It had a roll-in shower, grab bars, and a special bench. Everything was at the perfect height for him. I can shower by myself here, he said excitedly. I don't need help. Independence. That's what Natalie had bought him. Not just a nice house, but the ability to do things for himself, to feel capable and strong. That night, they ordered pizza and ate it in their new kitchen, boxes still stacked around them. Tyler couldn't stop smiling. Mom, are you happy? He asked suddenly. So happy, Natalie said honestly. Are you? Yeah. I like this house. I like that Dad isn't here being all weird and angry all the time. Is that bad? That I don't miss him? Natalie's heart broke a little. No, baby. That's not bad. He didn't treat you the way a father should. It's okay to feel however you feel about that. Good. Because I don't miss him at all. I have you and you're way better than him anyway. Natalie hugged him tight. We're going to be so good, Tyler. Just wait and see. She had no idea how right she was. 3 months after the divorce, Natalie's new life was unrecognizable. She woke up in her beautiful bedroom, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked her landscaped backyard. Tyler was already up. She could hear him in his room talking to someone on a video call. His new tutor who came 3 times a week to supplement his schoolwork. Natalie stretched and checked her phone. 7 emails from Catherine about investment opportunities. 2 from Robert about the foundation paperwork. 1 from Principal Anderson about Tyler's progress at Riverside Academy. And 1 from an unknown number. She opened it and her stomach dropped. Natalie, it's Brandon. I got your new number from your mom. We need to talk. Something weird is going on and I think you're hiding something from me. Call me. Natalie deleted the message immediately and blocked the number. Then she called her mother. Hi, honey, her mom answered cheerfully. Mom, did you give Brandon my new number? Pause. He called last week asking for it. He said he needed to talk to you about Tyler's medical bills. Was I not supposed to give it to him? Natalie closed her eyes, counting to 10. Her mother meant well, but she didn't understand the situation. Natalie hadn't told her family about the inheritance yet. As far as they knew, she was just getting by after the divorce. Mom, please don't give him any information about me. We're divorced. He gave up his right to know about my life when he walked out on us. But he's Tyler's father. He's a man who abandoned his disabled son. He doesn't get updates. He doesn't get my number. He doesn't get anything. Okay. Her mother sighed. Okay, honey. I'm sorry. I was just trying to help. I know. I love you. I have to go. Natalie sat on the edge of her bed, thinking. Brandon was getting suspicious. That was a problem. She'd been so careful, but somehow he'd noticed something. She needed to be more careful. She got dressed in new clothes, nice clothes, designer clothes, but nothing too flashy, and went to make breakfast. Tyler wheeled into the kitchen, already dressed for school. Morning, Mom. Can James come over after school today? He wants to see the pool. James was Tyler's new best friend from Riverside Academy. He also used a wheelchair and loved video games. The two boys had bonded immediately. Of course. I'll pick you both up after school. Awesome. Oh, and Mrs. Anderson asked if you could come to the parent board meeting next Tuesday. They want to talk about the new therapy wing. I'll be there. After dropping Tyler at school in their new accessible van, Natalie drove to her office. Yes, she had an office now. On the top floor of a downtown building. Natalie Michaels Investments, the sign on the door read. Her assistant, Monica, greeted her with a smile. Good morning. Your 10 o'clock meeting is confirmed. The architect will be here with the plans for the first therapy center. Natalie poured herself coffee and sat at her desk. 6 months ago, she'd been shelving books at the library. Now she was building an empire. The therapy center was her first major project. She'd bought a building on the east side of town and was converting it into a state-of-the-art facility for children with disabilities. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, all under one roof, all offered on a sliding scale based on family income. The architect arrived at 10 sharp, a woman in her 40s named Rachel Stone. She spread the plans across Natalie's conference table. I think you're going to love this, Rachel said. We've incorporated all your requests. The hydrotherapy pool here, sensory rooms here, private therapy suites here. We've made everything wheelchair accessible, of course, and we've designed the space to be calming and welcoming. Natalie studied the plans, making notes. I want to add more natural light. Floor-to-ceiling windows if possible. And can we add a garden courtyard? Something the kids can enjoy. Absolutely. I'll revise the plans and get them back to you by Friday. Perfect. And Rachel? Thank you for understanding my vision. This matters so much to me. Rachel smiled. It's the best project I've ever worked on. Usually, I'm designing office buildings or condos. This is something that will actually help people. It's an honor. After Rachel left, Natalie had back-to-back meetings. A real estate agent showing her potential properties for the second and third therapy centers. A lawyer finalizing the foundation paperwork. Catherine discussing new investment opportunities. During lunch, Natalie opened her laptop and checked her investment portfolio. Catherine had invested the money brilliantly. Real estate holdings in 3 states. Stock portfolios that were performing above market average. Startup investments in promising tech companies. In 3 months, her $150 million had grown to $167 million. She'd also donated $5 million to various charities supporting disabled children. She'd endowed scholarships at Riverside Academy. She'd given grants to families struggling with medical bills. And she'd done it all anonymously. No one knew where the money was coming from. She was just a concerned donor. Her phone rang. Robert Morrison. Natalie, I have news. Brandon filed a motion to revisit the divorce settlement. He's claiming you hid assets during the divorce proceedings. Natalie's blood ran cold. What? Apparently, someone told him you've been spending money. A lot of money. He hired a private investigator who found out about the new house and Tyler's new school. He's putting 2 and 2 together. Can he do that? Can he reopen the divorce? He can try, but he won't succeed. The inheritance came after the divorce was filed. It's not marital property. You didn't hide anything. You received it after he'd already started the divorce process. Legally, he has no claim to it whatsoever. Natalie exhaled. So I'm safe. Completely safe. But he's not going to be happy when he finds out. I recommend you prepare yourself for some unpleasant confrontations. Let him try. He made his choice. That's the spirit. I'll file a motion to dismiss his claim. With prejudice so he can't try again. After hanging up, Natalie sat back in her chair. Brandon was coming after her money. Of course he was. The moment he realized she had something he wanted, he came crawling back. Well, he was about to learn a very expensive lesson about consequences. That evening, Natalie sat with Tyler in their living room watching him play video games with James. The two boys laughed and joked, completely comfortable with each other. Tyler was happier than she'd ever seen him. Her phone buzzed. Another blocked number. She answered this time. Natalie. Brandon's voice was tight with anger. We need to talk. No, we don't. You inherited money. A lot of money. And you didn't tell me. I inherited money after you filed for divorce. After you left me and your son. It's none of your business. We were still married when you got it. I'm entitled to half. Natalie actually laughed. No, Brandon, you're not. Ask your lawyer. Oh wait, you can't afford a good lawyer, can you? You're stuck with that bargain basement attorney who didn't bother to check if I had received any money after you filed. My lawyer, on the other hand, is the best in the state. And he says you're entitled to exactly nothing. This isn't fair. I'm Tyler's father. You stopped being Tyler's father the day you walked out. You chose Stephanie. You chose Portland. You chose your easy life. Now you get to live with that choice. Natalie, please. I made a mistake. I miss you. I miss Tyler. Can we talk about this? Can we? No. Natalie's voice was ice cold. You don't get to come back now. You don't get to pretend you care. You left us when things were hard. You called our son a burden. You said he'd never be normal. Those were your words, Brandon. Your choices. Live with them. I'll fight this in court. Go ahead. Waste your money on lawyers. You'll lose. The inheritance is legally mine. You have no claim to it. And even if you did, I'd spend every penny fighting you before I let you have a single dollar. You chose to walk away. You don't get to walk back. She hung up and blocked the number. Tyler looked up from his game. Was that Dad? Yeah. What did he want? Natalie hesitated, then decided on the truth. Tyler deserved that. He found out about our money. He wants some of it. Tyler's face hardened in a way that was far too old for an 8-year-old. He can't have it. He left us. He doesn't get to come back just because we have money now. That's exactly right. And he's not getting any of it. I promise. Good. Tyler turned back to his game. James watched this move. The conversation was over for him. He'd processed it, decided Brandon wasn't worth his time, and moved on. Natalie wished she could do the same so easily. But she couldn't. Because Brandon wasn't going to give up. She knew him. Once he got an idea in his head, he was like a dog with a bone. He'd keep trying, keep pushing, keep fighting. Fine. Let him fight. She had better lawyers, more money, and the moral high ground. He had nothing but regret and greed. She knew which side would win. Over the next few weeks, Brandon tried everything. He called from different numbers, all of which she blocked. He showed up at the library where she used to work, only to find out she'd quit months ago. He tried to contact Tyler's old school, but Tyler didn't go there anymore. He even tried to file a police report claiming Natalie had kidnapped Tyler. The police laughed him out of the station after confirming that Natalie had full legal custody. Finally, his lawyer sent a formal letter demanding financial disclosure. Natalie's lawyer sent back a formal letter telling him to go pound sand, legally speaking. Meanwhile, Natalie's empire continued to grow. The first therapy center was under construction. She'd bought 2 more buildings for future locations. She'd invested in 3 startup companies focused on accessibility technology. She'd established a scholarship fund at Riverside Academy that would provide full tuition for 10 students a year. She'd also started dating again. Nothing serious, just casual dinners with men she met through her new social circles. It felt good to be wanted, to be treated well, to remember what it was like when a man opened doors and asked about her day and actually listened to the answers. Brandon had made her feel worthless. Small. Like she was lucky he'd stayed as long as he had. Now she knew the truth, he'd been lucky she'd stayed. She'd been the one holding everything together, managing Tyler's care, keeping the house running, maintaining their life while he'd been off gambling and having affairs and planning his escape. She'd been the strong one all along. She just hadn't known it. One evening, Natalie attended a charity gala for disabled children. She wore a dress that cost more than her car used to, and she felt beautiful. She donated $50,000 at the auction, anonymously. A man approached her during the cocktail hour. He was tall, handsome, well-dressed. I'm sorry to bother you, but I saw you bid on the therapy equipment package. Are you involved with disability services? I am, Natalie said. I have a son with cerebral palsy, and I'm opening a chain of therapy centers. That's wonderful. I'm Julian Rivers. I'm an architect. I design accessible buildings. They talked for hours. Julian was smart, funny, and genuinely interested in what she was doing. He volunteered with disability organizations. He understood the challenges families faced. He didn't treat Tyler's disability like a tragedy or an inconvenience. He was everything Brandon wasn't. When the gala ended, Julian asked for her number. She gave it to him. As she drove home that night, Natalie realized something. She was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. Her son was thriving. Her business was growing. She was helping people. She was building something meaningful. And Brandon? Brandon was in Portland, probably fighting with Stephanie about money, drowning in debt he couldn't pay, regretting every choice he'd made. That wasn't her problem anymore. She'd moved on, moved up, and moved forward. And she was never looking back. Brandon stared at his laptop screen, his coffee going cold beside him. The Facebook post had been shared over 1,000 times. Local philanthropist opens first therapy center for disabled children. And there was Natalie's photo. His Natalie. Except she didn't look like his Natalie anymore. She looked polished, confident, successful. She was standing in front of a modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows, wearing a professional pantsuit and holding a giant pair of scissors for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. The article said she'd funded the entire project herself. $20 million for the building, equipment, and 5 years of operating costs. $20 million. What are you looking at? Stephanie walked into their cramped living room, her voice sharp. She'd been sharp a lot lately. Ever since they'd moved to Portland and reality had set in. The city was expensive. Jobs were hard to find. Their apartment was tiny and overpriced. And Brandon couldn't stop thinking about Natalie. Nothing, he said, closing the laptop. But it was too late. Stephanie had seen. She grabbed the computer and opened it again, staring at the article. Her face went white, then red. $20 million? She shrieked. She has $20 million and you let her go? I didn't know. She didn't have any money when I left. She was working part-time at a library. Obviously she had money, Brandon. Look at this. It says she's opening 5 more centers. That she's established a foundation. That she's one of the largest donors to disability charities in the state. Stephanie threw the laptop at him. It bounced off his chest and clattered to the floor. You told me you were leaving a struggling wife with medical bills. You said we'd be better off without them dragging us down. I thought we would be. Well, congratulations. We're broke, I hate my job, this apartment is a dump, and your ex-wife is apparently a millionaire. Maybe a billionaire. Do you have any idea how stupid you look right now? Brandon did know. He felt it every day. The moment he'd seen the first post about Natalie's new house, shared by her mother who was so proud, he'd felt the first stirrings of doubt. Then came the posts about Tyler's new school. Then the charity work. Then the therapy center. She'd had money all along. Money she'd hidden from him during the divorce. She must have inherited it, Brandon muttered. That old aunt of hers probably died. I don't care where she got it. You walked away from millions. And for what? For this. Stephanie gestured around their apartment. We're living in a 1-bedroom apartment that costs $2,000 a month. I'm working 60 hours a week. You can't find a job that pays more than $45,000 a year. We're drowning, Brandon. I'm trying. You're useless. I gave up everything for you. My friends, my family, my job. And it turns out you left a fortune behind. She grabbed her purse. I'm going out. Don't wait up. She slammed the door so hard that a picture fell off the wall. Brandon sat alone in the silence, staring at the photo of Natalie on his laptop. She looked so different. Confident. Happy. Successful. She looked like she didn't need him at all. And that was what really killed him. Not the money, though that hurt. But the fact that she was clearly thriving without him. That she'd built an entire life, an entire empire, and he wasn't part of it. He opened his email and looked at the messages from his lawyer. Every single attempt to get access to Natalie's money had failed. The courts had dismissed his claims. The inheritance had come after the divorce was filed, so legally it wasn't marital property. He had no rights to it. Zero. Nothing. Nada. He'd walked away with $40,000 from the house sale. It had seemed like a lot at the time. Now it was almost gone. Stephanie had expensive taste. The Portland apartment market was brutal. His car had needed repairs. His gambling debts, which Natalie somehow knew about now, were drowning him. He was barely making minimum payments on $30,000 in credit card debt. The creditors called daily. He was one missed payment away from collections. Meanwhile, Natalie was donating millions to charity and opening therapy centers and living in a house that probably cost more than he'd make in a lifetime. How had this happened? He pulled up her old number in his phone. Still blocked. He tried calling from different numbers but she blocked those too. He tried emailing. She'd sent back one reply through her lawyer: "Stop contacting my client or we will pursue a restraining order." He tried reaching out to her mother, but she told him firmly to leave Natalie alone. He tried reaching out to Tyler's old school but Tyler didn't go there anymore. Natalie had completely vanished from his life, taking Tyler and apparently millions of dollars with her. Brandon opened a bottle of beer, then another. He sat alone in his apartment as the sun set, thinking about all the choices that had led him here. Leaving Natalie had seemed like such a good idea at the time. Life with her had been hard. Tyler's medical needs dominated everything. Money was always tight. Stephanie had seemed so easy in comparison. No complications. No disabled kid. No responsibilities. But Stephanie was a disappointment in ways he hadn't expected. She complained constantly. She blamed him for everything. She made it clear every day that she regretted moving to Portland with him. And she was right. He'd messed up. He'd made the biggest mistake of his life. He pulled up another Facebook post, this one from last week. Natalie at some fancy charity gala, wearing a dress that probably cost thousands of dollars. She was smiling, laughing, talking to people who looked important. She'd moved on. Completely and totally moved on. And he was stuck here in this crappy apartment with a woman who hated him, working a job he despised, drowning in debt he couldn't pay. His phone rang. A number he didn't recognize. He answered it. "Mr. Michaels? This is North American Credit Services calling about your account ending in 4782. Your payment is 30 days overdue. We need to arrange payment immediately or your account will be sent to collections." Brandon hung up without responding. He couldn't deal with it. Not tonight. He finished his beer and opened another, trying to drown out the voice in his head that kept screaming, "You idiot. You complete and total idiot. You had everything and you threw it away." Meanwhile, across town, Natalie was reading bedtime stories to Tyler. "Mom," Tyler said as she closed the book, "James's parents asked if I could go to their lake house next weekend. Can I?" "Of course. That sounds fun. They're really nice. His dad asked me about my therapy and stuff, but not in a weird way. Like he actually cared." Natalie smiled. "That's how good parents are supposed to be. Dad was never like that." "No, he wasn't." Tyler was quiet for a moment. "Do you think Dad misses us?" Natalie thought about it carefully. "I think Dad probably regrets his choices. But that's not the same as missing us. Missing us would mean he loved us enough to stay. Regret just means he's unhappy with how things turned out for him." "That makes sense. I don't miss him. Is that bad?" "No, baby. That's honest." After Tyler fell asleep, Natalie went downstairs and poured herself a glass of wine. She sat in her beautiful living room, looking out at the pool in the backyard that was lit up with soft blue lights. Her phone buzzed. A text from Julian: "Still on for dinner tomorrow?" She smiled. "Absolutely. Looking forward to it." Julian had been a pleasant surprise. They'd been dating casually for a month now, nothing serious, just dinners and conversations. He was patient with her, understanding that she wasn't ready for anything intense. He never pushed. He just showed up, was kind to Tyler, and made her laugh. It was nice. Simple. Easy. Everything with Brandon had been complicated. Everything had been a fight. Even the good times had been tinged with stress about money or Tyler's health or Brandon's moods. With Julian, things were just pleasant. No drama. No tension. Just two adults enjoying each other's company. Her laptop chimed with an email. "Robert Morrison. Natalie just wanted to update you. Brandon's latest attempt to challenge the divorce settlement has been denied. Again." The judge was quite firm in his dismissal, noting that Mr. Michaels has wasted enough of the court's time. He's been warned that any further frivolous motions will result in sanctions. He's officially out of options. Congratulations. You're completely free of him. Natalie read the email twice, letting it sink in. It was over. Brandon couldn't touch her. Couldn't touch her money. Couldn't interfere in her life anymore. She was free. She replied, "Thank you, Robert. For everything." She closed the laptop and finished her wine. Tomorrow she had a meeting with the architect about the second therapy center. Next week she was flying to New York to tour a building she was considering buying for the third center. Next month she was attending a conference on disability rights where she'd been asked to speak on a panel. Her life was full, rich, meaningful. And Brandon? Brandon was learning what it meant to lose everything because you didn't know how to value what you had. She didn't feel sorry for him. Not even a little bit. He'd made his choices. Now he had to live with them. And she got to live with hers. The conference room on the 40th floor had a view that stretched for miles. Natalie sat at the head of the table, surrounded by business partners, lawyers, and architects, discussing the expansion of her therapy center chain. The Chicago location is ahead of schedule, Rachel Stone said, pointing to architectural renderings on the screen. We should be ready for a spring opening. Excellent. And the Miami location? We've encountered some permitting delays but nothing serious. Summer opening. Natalie made notes on her tablet. 5 therapy centers in development. 2 already open and serving hundreds of families. Her foundation had provided grants to over 1,000 families in just 6 months. She'd also invested in 3 companies developing assistive technology. One was creating AI-powered wheelchairs. Another was developing apps for nonverbal children. The third was making affordable prosthetics using 3D printing. Her empire was growing exponentially. Catherine had been right. With smart investing, the money kept multiplying. She was now worth over $200 million. One more thing, her PR manager Claire spoke up. The Tribune wants to do a feature story on you. The secret philanthropist transforming disability care. It would be great publicity for the foundation. Natalie hesitated. She kept a relatively low profile up to this point. Press meant exposure. Exposure meant Brandon would definitely find out everything. Then again, Brandon already knew. He'd been trying to contact her for months. He'd filed 3 separate motions in court, all denied. He'd sent letters, emails, even shown up at the first therapy center's opening. Security had escorted him out. He already knew she had money. Hiding wasn't protecting her anymore. Okay, Natalie said. Set it up. But I have conditions. No photos of Tyler without his permission. No mention of Brandon by name. I'll talk about being a single mother and why this work matters, but I won't make my divorce public entertainment. Agreed. I'll set up the interview. After the meeting, Natalie had lunch with Catherine to review her portfolio. You're doing incredibly well, Catherine said, showing her the numbers. Your real estate investments alone have appreciated by 30%. The stock portfolio is up 22%. And the startup investments are starting to show serious returns. One of them is being acquired by a major tech company. Your share of that acquisition will be about $15 million. Natalie shook her head in disbelief. This doesn't feel real sometimes. It's very real. And you're being smart with it. You're not just spending, you're building. That's what separates people who sustain wealth from people who lose it. You're thinking generationally. I want Tyler to be taken care of forever. Even after I'm gone. And I want to help as many families as possible. You're doing both. At this rate, you'll be worth $500 million in 5 years. $500 million. Natalie couldn't even comprehend that number. That evening, she attended a fundraiser for children's hospitals. She'd been attending a lot of these events lately, partly for networking, partly because she genuinely cared about the causes. She donated $100,000 to tonight's auction. Julian met her there, looking handsome in a dark suit. He kissed her cheek in greeting. They'd been dating for 3 months now, and it was getting more serious. He'd met Tyler several times and the two got along wonderfully. Julian never treated Tyler's disability as a problem to solve or an obstacle to overcome. He just treated Tyler like a smart, funny kid who happened to use a wheelchair. You look beautiful, Julian said, taking her hand. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. They mingled with the other donors, and Natalie found herself in conversations with CEOs, doctors, and politicians. She held her own in these conversations now. 6 months ago she would have been intimidated. Now she was one of them, a major donor, a business owner, someone who made things happen. A woman approached her, elegantly dressed and radiating confidence. Natalie Michaels? I'm Senator Patricia Walsh. I've been hoping to meet you. Your work with disabled children is remarkable. They talked for 20 minutes about disability rights legislation. The senator was working on a bill to increase funding for special education and wanted Natalie's input. I'd be happy to testify if it would help, Natalie offered. That would be tremendous. I'll have my office contact you. After the senator moved on, Julian squeezed her hand. Look at you hobnobbing with senators. Natalie laughed. This is surreal. A year ago I was clipping coupons and buying generic cereal. Now I'm being asked to testify before Congress. You deserve it. You're doing amazing work. They danced during the gala's charity auction, and Natalie felt lighter than she had in years. This was her life now. Success. Purpose. Joy. Brandon couldn't hurt her anymore. He was a bad memory, nothing more. The next morning, Natalie woke to her phone ringing insistently. She grabbed it, seeing her lawyer's name. Robert? It's 6:30 in the morning. I know, and I'm sorry, but you need to see this. He sounded grim. Brandon gave an interview to a tabloid website. It went live an hour ago. I'm sending you the link. Natalie's stomach dropped. She opened her laptop and clicked the link Robert had sent. The headline made her blood boil. Disabled son's father speaks out. My ex-wife stole millions during our divorce. The article was full of lies. Brandon claimed Natalie had hidden the inheritance during their divorce. That she'd manipulated him into accepting a bad settlement. That she'd poisoned Tyler against him. That she was keeping him from seeing his son. It was all fabricated. Completely false. Worse, there was a photo of Tyler from Brandon's old Facebook page. Tyler at age 4 before his diagnosis, before the wheelchair. The caption read, Brandon's son whom he's now being kept from seeing. Natalie was shaking with rage. How dare he? How dare he use Tyler like this? How dare he lie about their divorce? Can we sue him? She asked Robert. Absolutely. Defamation, libel, unauthorized use of Tyler's image, we've got multiple angles. I'll file papers today. But Natalie, you need to be prepared. This might get messy. The tabloids will pick up the story. You might get media camping out at your house. Let them come. I'm not hiding. And I'm not letting Brandon's lies stand unchallenged. Good. I'll put out a statement through your PR team. We'll set the record straight. Natalie called Claire immediately. Have you seen the article? Just found it. I'm already drafting a response. We'll release it within the hour. Short, factual, devastating. Brandon will regret this. Make sure it includes the court records showing he filed for divorce first, that he walked out on Tyler, and that every single one of his post-divorce motions has been dismissed as frivolous. On it. By noon, Claire had released a statement that was being picked up by every major news outlet. Ms. Michaels is disappointed that her ex-husband has chosen to spread false information about their divorce. The facts are clear and documented in public court records. Mr. Michaels filed for divorce while Ms. Michaels was caring for their disabled son. Ms. Michaels received her inheritance after the divorce was filed, making it legally separate property. Mr. Michaels voluntarily agreed to minimal child support and walked away from his family. Since the divorce, he has filed 3 separate frivolous motions attempting to claim Ms. Michaels' inheritance, all of which have been dismissed by the courts. Ms. Michaels has built her wealth through smart investments and hard work, and she has used that wealth to help families with disabled children through her foundation and therapy centers. She will not be bullied or harassed by a man who chose to abandon his family and now regrets that choice. Any further false statements will be met with legal action. The response was immediate. Social media turned on Brandon. People dug up the court records and shared them. Brandon's lies were exposed. A reporter found Stephanie, who was angry enough at Brandon to tell her own story. He told me Natalie was struggling. He told me they had nothing. He left out the part where he was a gambling addict with $30,000 in credit card debt. He left out the part where he'd had multiple affairs. I moved to Portland for him and it's been a nightmare. Natalie didn't steal anything. Brandon threw it away. By the end of the day, Brandon was the villain of the internet. His phone number was leaked. His address was shared. People sent him messages calling him every name imaginable. Natalie felt no sympathy. He tried to publicly humiliate her and Tyler. He'd gotten exactly what he deserved. Her phone rang. Julian. Are you okay? He asked immediately. I saw the article and your response. I'm fine. Angry but fine. Do you want me to come over? Or do you need space? This was why she was falling for Julian. He asked what she needed instead of assuming. He gave her room to process. Come over, she said. Tyler would like to see you. And so would I. That evening, Julian came over with pizza and a new video game for Tyler. The 3 of them sat together in the living room, and Natalie felt her anger slowly fade. This was her family now. Her and Tyler and maybe, eventually, Julian. People who showed up. People who cared. People who didn't run when things got hard. Brandon had made his choice. And she'd made hers. She chose this. This life. This happiness. This future. And she was never looking back. 6 months into their relationship, Julian asked Natalie and Tyler to go away with him for the weekend. Where? Tyler asked excitedly. He adored Julian, who treated him like any other kid rather than making his disability the center of every conversation. It's a surprise, Julian said with a grin. But I promise it's accessible and fun. They drove 3 hours north to a beautiful lake resort that Julian had specifically chosen because it was fully wheelchair accessible. The cabin he'd rented had ramps, wide doorways, and an accessible bathroom. Tyler's face lit up when he saw the lake. Can I swim? Absolutely. They have adapted water equipment, Julian said. We can rent it tomorrow. That night, after Tyler was asleep, Natalie and Julian sat on the cabin's deck, looking at the stars. Thank you for this, Natalie said. You didn't have to go to so much effort. I wanted to. I wanted us to have time together, just the three of us. Julian took her hand. Natalie, I need to tell you something. Her heart raced. Okay. I'm falling in love with you. With both of you. Tyler is an amazing kid and you're an incredible woman. I know we've only been dating for 6 months, and I know you've been through hell with your ex-husband. I'm not asking you to say it back. I just needed you to know where I stand. Natalie felt tears prick her eyes. Julian, you don't have to respond. I just wanted you to know that I'm all in. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever you need, whatever pace you need to go, I'm here. She kissed him and it felt like coming home. I'm falling in love with you too. It scares me sometimes because trusting someone again after Brandon is hard. But you make it easier. You show up. You care about Tyler. You treat us both like we matter. You do matter. You both matter so much to me. They talked for hours about their pasts, their hopes for the future, their fears and dreams. Julian told her about his own difficult divorce 5 years earlier, how it had taught him what he really wanted in a partner. I want someone who's strong, he said. Someone who faces challenges head-on. Someone who builds rather than tears down. That's you, Natalie. You could have been bitter and angry after what Brandon did, but instead you built an empire. You're helping thousands of families. You're raising an incredible son. You're remarkable. I'm just doing what needs to be done. That's what makes you remarkable. You don't see it, but I do. The next morning they took Tyler out on the lake in an adapted kayak. Tyler laughed the entire time, paddling with his arms while Julian and Natalie steered. They had a picnic lunch on the dock, swam in the accessible pool and played board games in the evening. It was the most normal, happy weekend Natalie had experienced in years. No stress, no worries, just family time with people she loved. On the drive home, Tyler fell asleep in the back seat. Julian glanced at him in the rearview mirror and smiled. He's a great kid, he said quietly. He is. You're really good with him. It's easy. He's smart and funny. The wheelchair is just part of who he is, not the whole story. Brandon never saw it that way. Tyler was always a problem to solve, a burden to carry. Brandon was an idiot. Natalie laughed. Yes, he was. As they pulled into her driveway, Natalie realized something. She was ready. Ready to move forward. Ready to let someone into her and Tyler's life in a real way. Ready to trust again. Julian, would you like to have dinner with us next week? Just regularly? Like, maybe you could start coming over a few nights a week. Julian broke into a huge smile. I would love that. And maybe, eventually, you could have a drawer here? For when you stay over? Are you asking me to start staying over? I'm asking if you'd want to. When the time feels right. I'm not rushing anything, but I wanted you to know that I'm open to this getting more serious. Julian reached over and took her hand. I'm definitely open to that. Tyler woke up as they were getting out of the car. Are we home already? That was fast. You slept the whole way, Natalie said, helping him into his wheelchair. This was the best weekend ever. Can we do it again? Definitely, Julian said. And next time we'll try the zip line. They have an accessible one at another resort. Really? Awesome. As Julian helped carry their bags inside, Natalie watched him interact with Tyler, talking about the zip line and what other adventures they could plan. This was what a real partnership looked like. Someone who showed up. Someone who cared. Someone who saw Tyler as a kid with unlimited potential rather than a burden. Brandon had never been that person. She could see that now. She'd been so busy trying to make her marriage work, trying to be enough for Brandon, that she hadn't realized how little he was giving in return. Julian gave freely. He showed up without being asked. He genuinely enjoyed spending time with Tyler. He supported Natalie's business ventures and asked thoughtful questions about her foundation. He was proud of her success rather than threatened by it. This was what love was supposed to look like. That night, after Julian left and Tyler was in bed, Natalie sat at her kitchen table and thought about how far she'd come. A year ago, she'd been sobbing over divorce papers, wondering how she'd survive as a single mother with a disabled son and no money. Now she was a millionaire with a thriving business, a foundation that was changing lives, and a man who loved her and her son. She built all of this from nothing but determination and the gift Aunt Patricia had given her. She pulled out a photo of Aunt Patricia from her desk drawer. It was from Natalie's college graduation, one of the only photos she had of them together. Aunt Patricia looked fierce and proud in the picture, standing next to young Natalie in her cap and gown. "Thank you," Natalie whispered to the photo. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for giving me this chance. I'm being remarkable just like you asked. I promise." She put the photo back and went to check on Tyler. He was asleep, clutching a stuffed animal Julian had won for him at the resort's arcade. He looked peaceful, happy, safe. This was everything that mattered. Not the money, though that helped. Not the fancy house or the successful business. This, Tyler's happiness, his opportunities, his future. That was what Aunt Patricia's gift had really given her. The power to give her son the best possible life. And maybe, just maybe, a chance at her own happiness too. Her phone buzzed with a text from Julian. "Thank you for this weekend. Can't wait to see you again tomorrow." She smiled and texted back, "Me too. Thank you for being you." Brandon had walked away from this. He'd chosen his own comfort over his family. He traded something real and valuable for something easy and temporary. And now he was paying the price for that choice every single day. While she was here, building a beautiful life, falling in love, watching her son thrive. Revenge, she'd learned, wasn't about making someone suffer. It was about living so well that their absence didn't matter. It was about building something so beautiful that you forgot they were ever there. Brandon was becoming a distant memory, a cautionary tale, a mistake she'd learned from. And she was becoming someone she'd never imagined she could be, happy, successful, loved, and free. Brandon sat in his car across the street from Natalie's office building, watching people come and go. He'd been sitting there for 2 hours trying to work up the courage to go inside. Everything had fallen apart. Stephanie had left him 3 months ago, taking half the furniture and his last shred of dignity with her. His credit cards were maxed out. His car was one payment away from repossession. His landlord was threatening eviction. And Natalie? Natalie was on the cover of a magazine. Businesswoman of the Year. He'd seen it at the grocery store and nearly dropped his basket. She looked incredible in the photo. Professional, powerful, successful. Nothing like the tired, stressed woman he'd walked away from. The article inside detailed her empire. 5 therapy centers, a foundation that had given away millions, investment in tech companies, real estate holdings across 3 states. They estimated her net worth at $250 million. $250 million. And he'd walked away from her when she had exactly $347 in her personal checking account. He was an idiot. The biggest idiot in the world. Stephanie had told him so repeatedly before she left. "You had a millionaire wife and you traded her for me?" she'd screamed during their final fight. "What is wrong with you? What did you think was going to happen? That we'd live happily ever after in this dump while she built an empire? You're pathetic." She was right. He was pathetic. He tried everything to get Natalie's attention. Letters, emails, phone calls from different numbers. He'd shown up at the therapy center opening. He'd even tried to use Tyler as leverage, filing for custody just to get her to talk to him. Nothing worked. She'd blocked him at every turn. Her lawyers were better than his. Her money bought her protection he couldn't penetrate. He had one last idea. One desperate, stupid idea. He'd go to her office. He'd wait until she came out. He'd apologize. He'd beg. He'd do whatever it took to get her to listen. Maybe she'd forgive him. Maybe she'd remember the good times they'd had, back before Tyler's diagnosis, back when things were simpler. Maybe she'd give him another chance. Or maybe she'd just give him money to go away. He'd take that too. He wasn't proud anymore. He just needed to survive. At 3 o'clock, Natalie emerged from the building. Brandon's breath caught. She really did look incredible. She was wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than his entire wardrobe. Her hair was styled perfectly. She was talking on her phone, laughing at something the other person said. She looked happy. Really, genuinely happy. And then he saw why. A man walked up to her, tall, handsome, well-dressed. He kissed her, and she smiled up at him with a look that Brandon remembered but had never quite received himself. Pure joy. They walked to a car together, still talking, still smiling. The man opened her door for her. They drove away in a luxury sedan that probably cost more than Brandon made in 2 years. Brandon sat in his beat-up car and felt something break inside him. She'd moved on. Completely moved on. She had a new life, a new man, probably a new everything. And he was sitting here in a car that smelled like old fast food, planning to beg his ex-wife for money. He couldn't do it. He couldn't humiliate himself like that. Not after seeing her so happy, so successful, so far beyond him. He drove away, but he didn't go home. Instead, he found himself at a bar, ordering drinks he couldn't afford. The bartender raised an eyebrow at his credit card but ran it anyway. For now it still worked. Barely. Rough day? The woman next to him asked. She was in her 40s, tired-looking, nursing a beer. Rough life, Brandon muttered. I'll drink to that. She clinked her bottle against his glass. What's your story? And because he was drunk and desperate and had nobody else to talk to, Brandon told her everything. About Natalie, about Tyler, about walking away and realizing too late what he'd lost. The woman listened, her expression growing more disgusted with every word. Let me get this straight, she said finally. You walked out on your disabled kid and his mother. Then you found out she'd inherited millions. And now you're mad that she won't give you any of it. I'm not mad. You're mad. And you're stupid. Your wife didn't steal anything from you. You threw it away. You threw away your family because taking care of a disabled kid was too hard. And now you want sympathy? She stood up, throwing money on the bar. You don't deserve sympathy. You deserve exactly what you got. Nothing. She walked out, leaving Brandon alone with his drink and his thoughts. She was right. He knew she was right. He'd thrown away everything that mattered because he'd been selfish and short-sighted. He'd wanted an easy life and he'd gotten exactly that. An easy divorce from a woman who'd gone on to do amazing things without him. His phone rang. His landlord. Mr. Michaels, your rent is 2 weeks late. I need payment by Friday or I'm starting eviction proceedings. I'll have it, Brandon lied. He had no idea where he'd get it. His next paycheck wouldn't cover it. He had nothing left to sell. See that you do. Brandon ordered another drink. Then another. By the time he stumbled out of the bar, it was dark and he was too drunk to drive safely. He got behind the wheel anyway. He made it 3 blocks before the police lights flashed behind him. Natalie learned about Brandon's arrest from Robert 2 days later. He got a DUI, Robert said. Pretty severe one. Blood alcohol 3 times the legal limit. His license is suspended and he's looking at jail time. Natalie felt nothing. No sympathy, no satisfaction. Just nothing. Why are you telling me this? Because he listed you as his emergency contact. The police called your office. I told them you two are divorced and you're not responsible for him, but I thought you should know. Did they call anyone else? His parents? His father hung up on them. So he has no one. That's not your problem, Natalie. He made his choices. All of them. I know. Thank you for letting me know. After she hung up, Natalie sat at her desk and thought about Brandon in jail. She could help him. She could pay his bail, hire him a lawyer, make the problem go away. She had the money. It would be nothing to her. But she wasn't going to. Not because she was cruel, but because helping him would teach him nothing. He needed to face the consequences of his choices. All of them. The choice to walk away from his family. The choice to drive drunk. The choice to waste his life feeling sorry for himself instead of building something better. She wasn't responsible for his happiness or his survival. She was only responsible for Tyler's and her own. That evening, she told Julian about it while they cooked dinner together in her kitchen. How do you feel about it? Julian asked carefully. I don't feel anything. Is that bad? No. It's healthy. He's not your responsibility anymore. He hasn't been for a long time. I keep waiting to feel guilty. To feel like I should help him. But I don't. Julian pulled her into a hug. That's because you've healed. You've moved past what he did to you. That's a good thing, Natalie. That's growth. She leaned into him, grateful for his presence. Thank you for being exactly what I needed. Always. Tyler wheeled into the kitchen. What's for dinner? I'm starving. Tacos, Julian said. And I bought that ice cream you like for dessert. You're the best. Tyler declared. Can we watch that new superhero movie tonight? Only if you finish your homework first. Deal? As they sat together eating dinner, laughing at Tyler's stories from school, Natalie realized something. This was her family now. This was her life. Brandon was just a ghost from her past, fading more and more with each day. He'd wanted a fresh start when he left her. He'd gotten exactly that. Just not the fresh start he'd imagined. And she'd gotten the life she'd always deserved but never knew was possible. Sometimes the best revenge was just living well. And she was living very, very well. Brandon filed one last motion 6 months later, after getting out of jail. Emergency custody of Tyler. Natalie got the paperwork at work. She read it once, twice, unable to believe what she was seeing. Brandon was claiming that her wealth and excessive lifestyle were harmful to Tyler. That she was spoiling him. That Tyler needed a grounded, normal home environment. That Brandon had gotten his life together and was ready to be a father again. It was absurd. Completely absurd. But he'd filed it and now she had to respond. Her lawyer, Jennifer, Robert had brought in a family law specialist, was furious. This is insane. He abandoned Tyler, hasn't paid child support in months, has a DUI on his record, and now he wants custody? What judge would even consider this? Can he win? Natalie asked, her voice tight with fear. Absolutely not. But we still have to go to court. We still have to fight it. He's forcing you to waste time and money defending your right to raise your own son. The court date was set for 3 weeks later. Natalie spent those weeks gathering evidence. Tyler's medical records showing the excellent care he was receiving, report cards from Riverside Academy showing his academic improvement, statements from his teachers and therapists, documentation of Brandon's failure to pay child support, and records of Brandon's multiple arrests. She also had to prepare Tyler, which was the hardest part. Why does Dad want me to live with him? Tyler asked, his voice small. He didn't want me before. I don't know, baby. But it's not going to happen. I promise. What if the judge makes me go? The judge won't. You're happy here. You're thriving here. And you have a say too. At 8 years old, the judge will listen to what you want. I want to stay with you. And with Julian. This is my home. Then that's what we'll tell the judge. The courtroom was cold and formal. Brandon sat on one side with his lawyer, a desperate-looking man who'd probably taken the case for cheap. Natalie sat on the other with Jennifer, who looked professional and prepared. Brandon had clearly tried to clean himself up. He wore an ill-fitting suit and had gotten a haircut. But he looked haggard, worn down by the life he'd chosen. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s named Judge Patricia Reynolds, another Patricia, Natalie took it as a good sign, reviewed the case file with a frown. Mr. Michaels, you're seeking primary custody of your 8-year-old son, Tyler? Yes, Your Honor. I believe it's in his best interest. You filed for divorce 2 years ago, abandoning your disabled son and his mother to move to another state with your then-girlfriend. Is that correct? Brandon shifted uncomfortably. I made some mistakes. You've paid child support exactly 3 times in 2 years despite court orders. You've been arrested twice, once for harassment and once for driving under the influence. You spent 30 days in jail. And now you want custody? I've turned my life around. Have you? Judge Reynolds looked at him over her glasses. You're currently unemployed, facing eviction, and have no stable housing. You have a suspended driver's license. You have no plan for Tyler's medical care or education. What exactly have you turned around? Brandon's lawyer jumped in. Your Honor, my client has been working to improve his circumstances. By filing frivolous motions in my courtroom? Judge Reynolds looked unimpressed. This is the 4th motion Mr. Michaels has filed in 2 years, all attempting to either access Ms. Michaels' inheritance or interfere with her custody. Each one has been dismissed. Why should this time be different? Because Tyler deserves a father in his life, Brandon's lawyer said weakly. Tyler has had a father his whole life. A father who chose to leave. A father who chose not to pay support. A father who chose a bottle over his responsibilities. Judge Reynolds turned to Jennifer. Miss Carter, what does the mother have to say? Jennifer stood. Your Honor, Ms. Michaels has provided Tyler with the best possible care. He attends one of the premier schools for disabled children in the country. He has a team of therapists working with him daily. He's happy, healthy, and thriving. His grades are excellent. His physical abilities have improved significantly. He's in a stable, loving home with a mother who has dedicated her life to his well-being. Mr. Michaels' motion is nothing more than another attempt to harass Ms. Michaels and access her money. We request that it be dismissed with prejudice and that Mr. Michaels be ordered to pay Ms. Michaels' legal fees. I'd like to hear from Tyler, Judge Reynolds said. Is he here? He is, Your Honor. In the waiting room. Bring him in. A bailiff wheeled Tyler into the courtroom. He looked nervous but determined. He wheeled himself right up to the judge's bench. Hi, Tyler, Judge Reynolds said gently. I'm Judge Reynolds. Do you know why you're here? Yes, ma'am. My dad wants me to live with him. And how do you feel about that? Tyler looked directly at Brandon, then back at the judge. I don't want to. He left us. He said I was too much trouble. He hasn't called me or sent me birthday cards or anything. Mom takes care of me. Mom loves me. I want to stay with her. Tell me about your life with your mom. Tyler's face lit up. It's great. I go to a really cool school where the teachers understand about my wheelchair. I have lots of friends. I'm learning to swim in our pool at home. My mom started a foundation that helps kids like me. And her boyfriend Julian is really nice. He plays video games with me and doesn't treat me like I'm fragile. Do you feel safe and happy at home? Yes, ma'am. So happy. Mom says I can do anything I want if I work hard enough. She believes in me. Judge Reynolds nodded. Thank you, Tyler. You can go back to the waiting room now. After Tyler left, Judge Reynolds turned to Brandon. Mr. Michaels, I've heard enough. Your motion is not only denied, it's denied with prejudice. That means you cannot file any further motions regarding custody without showing a substantial change in circumstances. And I don't mean Ms. Michaels' financial circumstances, I mean your own. Until you can demonstrate stable employment, stable housing, and at least 6 months of consistent child support payments, you have no business in this courtroom. Your Honor. I'm not finished. You will pay Ms. Michaels' legal fees for this hearing, which I estimate will be approximately $15,000. You will also resume your child support payments immediately, with an additional $100 per month toward your arrears. If you miss a single payment, I will hold you in contempt and you will go back to jail. Do you understand? Brandon's face was white. Yes, Your Honor. Good. Ms. Michaels, you retain full legal and physical custody of Tyler. Mr. Michaels' visitation rights are suspended until he can prove he's gotten his life together. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Brandon sat frozen in his chair. His lawyer packed up his briefcase quickly, clearly wanting to get out of there. Brandon's eyes found Natalie's across the courtroom. She looked back at him with no emotion. No anger, no satisfaction, no pity. Just nothing. He'd lost. Completely and utterly lost. And this time it was final. Jennifer led Natalie out of the courtroom where Tyler was waiting. He looked worried. What happened? You're staying with me, Natalie said, pulling him into a hug. Forever. Dad can't take you away. Tyler hugged her back fiercely. Good. I didn't want to go anyway. Julian was waiting in the hallway. He'd taken the day off work to be there for support. He pulled them both into a hug. Let's go home, he said. As they left the courthouse, Natalie saw Brandon sitting on a bench outside, his head in his hands. He looked broken, defeated. She felt no urge to comfort him. No urge to gloat. She just felt done. Done with him. Done with fighting. Done with letting him take up any space in her life. She'd won. Not because the judge had ruled in her favor, but because she'd built a life so strong, so full of love and purpose, that nothing he could do would ever shake it. They went home, ordered pizza, and watched movies. Tyler fell asleep between Natalie and Julian on the couch, content and safe. He really can't file any more motions? Julian asked quietly. Not without proving major changes first. And even then, no judge will give him custody. Tyler made it clear where he wants to be. The case is over. So it's really done? It's really done. Julian kissed her forehead. Good. Now we can focus on the future. And what a future it was. Natalie had plans. Big plans. More therapy centers. A nationwide advocacy network. Maybe even political involvement to change disability rights laws. Brandon was her past. A mistake she'd learned from. A chapter that was closed. The future? The future was bright and full of possibility. And she couldn't wait to see what came next. 1 year later, Natalie stood in her backyard, watching Tyler race his friends around the pool in adapted floats. His laughter carried across the water, pure and joyful. She was wearing a simple white dress. In an hour, she'd walk down an aisle in this very backyard and marry Julian in front of their closest friends and family. Mom? Tyler called out. Come take a picture. She walked over, careful not to get her dress wet, and posed with Tyler and his friends. These kids, all from Riverside Academy, all with different abilities, all thriving, represented everything she'd built over the past 2 years. Her foundation had helped over 10,000 families. Her 9 therapy centers served 3 states. She'd testified before Congress about disability rights. She'd been featured in Forbes, Time, and countless other publications. But more importantly, she'd built a life she loved. A life filled with purpose, joy, and love. You look beautiful, her mother said, coming up beside her. Her whole family was here. Her mother, her siblings, her aunts and uncles. They'd all been shocked when they'd learned about the inheritance, but proud of what she'd done with it. I'm nervous, Natalie admitted. Don't be. Julian is a good man. He loves you and Tyler. This is right. I know. It just feels surreal. 2 years ago, I thought my life was over. I thought being divorced with a disabled son meant I'd be alone forever. And instead, you built an empire and found a man who deserves you. That's not surreal. That's what you earned. The ceremony was perfect. Small, intimate, meaningful. Tyler was the ring bearer, wheeling down the aisle with the rings tied to his wheelchair with ribbons. Natalie's niece was the flower girl. Julian's daughter from his previous marriage was the maid of honor. When Natalie walked down the aisle, Julian's eyes filled with tears. She looked beautiful, yes, but more than that, she looked happy. Confident. Powerful. Like she knew exactly who she was and what she wanted. The officiant kept it short and sweet. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves. "Natalie," Julian said, his voice thick with emotion. "You came into my life like a force of nature. You showed me what real strength looks like. You showed me what it means to build something from nothing. You showed me what love looks like when it's given freely, without conditions. I promise to support you, to partner with you, to love Tyler as my own, and to remind you every day how remarkable you are. I choose you today and every day." Natalie smiled through her tears. "Julian, you showed up when I'd almost given up on people. You saw me, not my money, not my past, just me. You loved Tyler before you loved me, and that's how I knew you were real. You make me laugh. You challenge me to be better. You hold my hand when things are hard and celebrate with me when things are good. I choose you always." They kissed and everyone cheered. Tyler whistled loudly, making everyone laugh. The reception was in full swing when Natalie's phone buzzed with an email. She normally wouldn't check it during her wedding, but the sender was Robert Morrison. "Natalie, thought you should know. Brandon filed for bankruptcy this morning. Lost everything, including the lawsuit he filed against you for defamation, which was also dismissed. He'll be paying your legal fees in installments for the next 10 years. Consider it a wedding gift, complete and total freedom. Congratulations, Robert." Natalie showed Julian the email. He raised his eyebrows. "How do you feel?" "I don't," she said honestly. "I feel nothing. He's just a person I used to know who made terrible choices. That's all." "Good. Because this," he gestured around the backyard full of love and laughter and celebration, "this is what matters. Not him." "I know." As the evening wore on, Natalie found herself standing at the edge of the party, watching everyone she loved celebrate together. Tyler was showing Julian's daughter how to do tricks in his wheelchair. Her mother was crying happy tears and talking to Julian's father. Catherine was discussing investment strategies with her brother, who was an accountant. Rachel was sketching designs for the 10th therapy center on a napkin. This was her empire. Not the money or the businesses or the real estate. This, the people, the love, the impact, the joy. This was what she'd built. She thought about Aunt Patricia, who had made all of this possible. Who had seen potential in a struggling mother and given her a gift that changed everything. "Thank you," Natalie whispered to the sky. "Thank you for believing in me. I hope I made you proud." A breeze rustled through the trees and Natalie chose to believe it was Aunt Patricia's way of saying, "You did." Julian came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Happy. So happy. Happier than I ever imagined I could be." "Good. Because this is just the beginning. We're going to do amazing things together. We already are." They watched the party together, his chin resting on her shoulder, both of them content and peaceful and exactly where they wanted to be. Brandon had thought leaving her was his fresh start. His chance at an easier, better life. He'd been wrong about everything. The fresh start had been hers. The better life had been hers. The happy ending had been hers all along. And now, standing in her beautiful backyard surrounded by everyone she loved, married to a man who truly saw and valued her, watching her son thrive beyond any limitation anyone had tried to place on him, now she understood the truth. She'd never needed Brandon to be happy. She'd never needed anyone to save her. She'd saved herself. She'd built this life with her own two hands, her own determination, her own strength. The inheritance had given her tools. But she'd built the empire. And it was glorious. Tyler wheeled up to them, grinning. "Mom, Julian, come dance with me. They're playing my favorite song." "Absolutely," Julian said, releasing Natalie to follow Tyler to the dance floor. Natalie watched her son and her husband dance together, Tyler's wheelchair spinning in circles while Julian pretended to do complicated dance moves around him. Both of them were laughing so hard they could barely breathe. This was revenge. Not hurting the person who hurt you. Not making them suffer. Not gloating about your success while they fail. No. Real revenge was building a life so beautiful, so full of love, so overflowing with joy that the person who left you became completely irrelevant. Real revenge was being so happy that you forgot to care whether they ever realized what they'd lost. Real revenge was living well. And Natalie was living very, very well indeed. Brandon was somewhere out there, alone with his regrets. And she was here, surrounded by love, dancing at her own wedding, planning her future, raising her incredible son. She'd won. Not because he'd lost, but because she'd built something he could never touch, never taint, never take away. Her phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. "I saw the wedding announcement in the paper. Congratulations. I'm sorry for everything." It was Brandon. One last attempt to insert himself into her life, into her happiness. Natalie looked at the message for a long moment. Then she deleted it, blocked the number, and put her phone away. She didn't need his apologies. She didn't need his regrets. She didn't need anything from him at all. She had everything she needed right here. She walked onto the dance floor, where Julian immediately pulled her close and Tyler circled around them, and the three of them danced together under the string lights and stars. This was her empire. This was her revenge. This was her happy ending. And it was better than anything she could have ever imagined.
"Get your worthless things and get out of my house," Mark snarled, shoving a suitcase towards his wife, Sarah. He adjusted the collar on his expensive shirt, a recent promotion celebrating his rise at the company. "I'm marrying Jessica, a real woman. You're just a leech I've been carrying." He sneered, completely unaware that the leech he was kicking out was the secret, silent billionaire who owned the very company he was so proud of. Sarah stood by the door, her face pale, but her eyes held a cold fire he mistook for tears. He thought he was securing his future. He had no idea she was about to sign the papers that would not only crush his career, but leave him without a single cent to his name. Utterly homeless. Sarah's hand tightened on the handle of the cheap worn suitcase. It was the one she'd brought into this marriage 8 years ago. Mark had always promised to buy her a new expensive set, but somehow he never got around to it. Now she was glad. It was a fitting bookend. He saw her glance at the walls of the grand foyer, walls he assumed she was weeping to leave. He laughed, a short barking sound. "Don't bother," he said. "Jessica is bringing in a decorator on Monday. She hates your bland, boring taste. Frankly, so do I." Bland, boring, a leech. The words echoed in the marble hall, a hall she had paid for with a quiet transfer from an account he didn't know existed. She thought back to their beginning. He hadn't been like this. He had been a low-level analyst at Starkweather Holdings, kind, unassuming, and seemingly uninterested in the corporate climb. That was why she'd chosen him. After her father, the Titan Robert Starkweather, had passed away, Sarah had been suffocated by a parade of gold-digging suitors, men who could smell her inheritance like sharks smell blood. Mark had been her refuge. He'd loved her, he said, for her simple heart, not for a fortune she never told him she had. She had wanted to be just Sarah, not Sarah Starkweather, heiress to the empire. Her father had warned her on his deathbed, his voice a papery rasp. "Power is a heavy coat, sweetheart. Be careful who you let carry it for you. Marry for love, but sign the papers for war." She had signed the papers, a prenuptial agreement so ironclad it was practically a fortress. Mark had laughed as he signed it, barely reading. "What's this, Sarah? All assets held prior to the marriage remain separate? Honey, all I have is student debt and a leased Honda. You can keep it." He didn't know her prior assets included 51% of the entire Starkweather conglomerate. She had kept her secret, relishing the simple life. She'd managed her empire from a quiet home office he thought was for her little crafting blog, signing off on billion-dollar acquisitions before going downstairs to make him dinner. All her proxies and board members communicated through her family's ancient lawyer, Arthur Harrison. To the world and to her husband, she was a ghost. But as Mark's career at her company grew, so did his ego. She had greased the wheels for him, subtly, arranging for his good work to land on the right desks, believing she was supporting her husband's dreams. Instead, she had been feeding a monster. The recent promotion he was so proud of, she had personally signed off on it, an anniversary gift. He was celebrating it by replacing her. "Are you deaf?" Mark snapped, pulling her from her reverie. "I said, get out." Sarah's eyes moved from his face, past the swirling staircase, and landed on a small, insignificant painting hanging by the door. It was a simple watercolor of a gray coastline. "I'll be taking that," she said, her voice quiet but firm. Mark actually scoffed. "That ugly thing? My God, you have no taste. Jessica loves modern art, big, bold pieces. Not that drab little sketch? Fine. Take it. A fitting reminder of the mousy, colorless woman you are. He ripped it from the wall, the drywall tearing slightly, and shoved it into her hands. He didn't know it was a key. It wasn't a masterpiece, but the back of the frame held the private keys to her entire crypto ledger and the direct, untraceable passcodes to her private servers. It was quite literally the keys to the kingdom. She tucked it under her arm, picked up her suitcase, and walked out the door without a backward glance. She didn't look at the shimmering black car parked down the street, where she could just see the outline of a woman with bright blonde hair. Sarah walked past the gates, pulled out her phone, and pressed a single number on her contact list. "Arthur," she said, her voice no longer pale but forged from steel. "He's out. Execute the fidelity clause. Freeze everything. The joint accounts, the credit cards, all of it. And the house. I want it on the market by noon. And call an emergency meeting of the board for 9 a.m. tomorrow. It's time I came home." Mark woke the next morning feeling lighter than he had in years. The house was blissfully silent. No sign of Sarah's mopey presence. Jessica was already there, twirling in the kitchen in one of his dress shirts, sipping coffee from a mug that said, "World's Best Husband." "It's perfect, baby," she cooed. "We can finally be happy. No more hiding. No more pretending you're married to that beige woman." Mark grinned, pulling her close. "Beige. That's the perfect word for her. She was a leech, Jess, sucking the life out of me. But now I'm free. I'm a VP. You and we're going to the top." He felt a rush of power. He was the new VP of acquisitions, a role he'd earned through sheer grit and brilliance. Or so he thought. He'd crushed his rivals, his presentations had been flawless, and the CEO, a stiff old suit named Peterson, had finally recognized his talent. Today he would walk into Starkweather Holdings, not just as an employee, but as a king. He kissed Jessica, who was already pointing at the curtains. "Those have to go. I want velvet." Mark laughed. "Whatever you want, baby. The new salary can handle it." He practically strutted into the gleaming glass tower of the Starkweather building. People seemed to be looking at him, whispering. He mistook their nervous energy for awe. "Morning, Janet," he boomed at the receptionist. "Mr. Jennings," she said, her voice strained, not meeting his eyes. "There's an all-hands emergency meeting in the main boardroom. In 5 minutes." Mark's grin widened. An emergency meeting? On the day after his promotion? They were probably announcing it to the whole company, maybe even giving him a bigger bonus. He pictured the applause. He adjusted his tie, a silk monstrosity Jessica had picked out. He remembered briefly how Sarah used to straighten his ties, her small, cool hands so gentle. He shook the thought away. That was the past. The future was bright, bold, and blonde. He strode into the boardroom. The atmosphere was not celebratory. It was a morgue. The entire executive board, including the ancient, formidable Arthur Harrison, the company's chief legal counsel and chairman of the board, were seated. Even CEO Peterson looked green. Mark's confidence wavered for a second. Morning, everyone. What's the occasion?" Arthur Harrison, a man who looked like he'd been carved from granite, stared at him. "Sit down, Mr. Jennings." The Mr. Jennings felt wrong. It wasn't Mark, my boy. It was Mr. Jennings, like he was a stranger. He sat, his palms suddenly clammy. "We are here," Harrison began, his voice filling the room, "to address a catastrophic failure in leadership, a breach of ethics that cuts to the very core of this company." Mark's mind raced. Was it his rival, Henderson? Did they find out Henderson was fudging the numbers? He almost smiled. "Starkweather Holdings has a zero-tolerance policy for conflicts of interest," Harrison continued, his gaze sweeping the room. "We do not tolerate executives leveraging company positions for personal gain, nor do we tolerate fraternization with subordinates." Mark's blood turned to ice. Jessica. She was technically a marketing manager, 2 levels below him. But everyone did it. It wasn't a fireable offense. Not for a VP. "Arthur," Mark started, trying a familiar tone. "If this is about Jessica Lang, it's a simple misunderstanding. It's a private matter." Harrison's eyes narrowed. "It became a company matter Mr. Jennings, when you used your corporate card, a card funded by this company, to purchase her a vehicle and an apartment and numerous other gifts, all while married to a woman who, for 8 years, has embodied the very humility and integrity this company was founded on. Mark was stunned. How could they know? He'd hidden those expenses. But that is not the primary reason for this meeting, Harrison said, his voice dropping. For 8 years, the majority shareholder of Starkweather Holdings has remained anonymous, content to manage her assets from afar, trusting her executive team to run the day-to-day operations. He paused. The room was so quiet, Mark could hear his own heart pounding. She has decided, given recent and personal events, that this company requires a more hands-on approach. Gentlemen, ladies, allow me to introduce the owner of Starkweather Holdings and your new acting CEO, Miss Sarah Starkweather. The side door to the boardroom opened, and Sarah walked in. But it wasn't Sarah. It couldn't be. The woman he'd kicked out yesterday wore cheap jeans and a faded t-shirt. This woman was in a bespoke, razor-sharp black suit that probably cost more than his car. Her hair was pulled back in an elegant, severe chignon. Her face was the same, but the look in her eyes, it was the same cold fire he'd seen by the door, but now it was an inferno of pure Arctic authority. She didn't look at him. She walked to the head of the table and took the seat beside Harrison. The entire board rose as one. Ms. Starkweather, CEO Peterson said, bowing his head slightly. Sarah, Mark whispered, his voice cracking. What is this? What are you doing here? She finally turned her head, her gaze pinning him to his chair. It was like being inspected by a god. I'm here to take out the trash, Mark, she said, her voice quiet, yet it sliced through the silence. The board flinched. Mark's world was tilting. It wasn't possible. This mousy, boring, beige woman. You own Starkweather? He stammered. You're my boss? Sarah gave a small, chilling smile. I'm not your boss, Mark. You don't work here anymore. He looked at her, bewildered, and then at Harrison. What? You can't be serious. I just got the VP promotion. I'm the best acquisitions man you have. Harrison slid a single file across the table. You were promoted, Mr. Jennings, at the express request of Ms. Starkweather. It was an anniversary gift, I believe. The blood drained from Mark's face. All of it. His promotions, his bonuses, the easy ride. It hadn't been his brilliance. It had been her. A handout, a charity case. The leech had been the host all along. This is a mistake, Mark pleaded, his voice rising to a desperate squeak. He looked at Sarah, truly looked at her, and saw his entire marriage flash before his eyes. Her boring nights spent reading financial reports. Her coincidental run-ins with board members at charity events he dragged her to. Her quiet, offhand comments about the market that always turned out to be right. Sarah, honey, we can talk about this. Last night was a mistake. I was stressed. I didn't mean it. Sarah held up a hand. He stopped talking instantly. The power in that simple gesture was absolute. Mr. Harrison, she said, her voice bored, please proceed with the termination. Harrison nodded grimly. Mark Jennings, you are terminated for cause, effective immediately, for gross misconduct in violation of the corporate ethics clause. Furthermore, Ms. Starkweather has activated the fidelity and conduct clauses in your prenuptial agreement. Mark's mind scrambled back to that day, signing the papers. He'd laughed. Due to your proven infidelity, Harrison read in a monotone, you forfeit any and all claims to marital assets, community property, and spousal support. As all major assets, including your home and vehicles, were purchased solely by Ms. Starkweather's prior held assets, you are entitled to precisely nothing. Nothing. The word hung in the air. But the joint accounts, Mark cried. My salary, my savings. Sarah spoke again. Your savings, Mark. The joint accounts were a convenience I funded. Your salary was routed there, yes, but your withdrawals far exceeded your contributions. You've been living on my money for 8 years. You just called it your salary. As of last night, those accounts are closed to you. A woman from HR, flanked by two stone-faced security guards, entered the room. "Mr. Jennings, we'll need your ID badge, your company car keys, and your corporate phone." Mark was shaking, his face a mask of purple rage and stark terror. You bitch, he spat at Sarah. "You're a fucking leech." The security guards grabbed his arms. Sarah just watched him, her expression unreadable. "A leech, Mark," she said, her voice soft. "A leech feeds on a host to survive. You, however, seem to have poisoned the host and are now surprised you have nothing left to eat. Get him out of my building." The last thing Mark saw as he was dragged out, his heels scraping on the Italian marble, was Sarah turning to the board. "Now, gentlemen, let's talk about Q4 projections. I see some inefficiencies I plan to correct." The humiliation of the lobby was a fresh hell. He was marched past hundreds of employees, all staring, all filming on their phones. The man who had entered like a king was being hauled out like a criminal. Once on the street, the guards literally threw his cheap office plant box at his feet, the contents spilling onto the grimy sidewalk. "Don't come back," one of them growled. Mark stood there, shaking in his expensive suit. He tried to call Jessica. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." She'd blocked him. Of course, she must have gotten the call from HR at the same time. He tried to use his credit card to get a cab. Declined. He tried another. Declined. And the next. Declined. He checked his personal bank account on his phone, the one he thought she couldn't touch. A balance of $43.12. He stumbled to the subway, a rage building in his chest. She couldn't take the house. It was in both their names. He'd made sure of that. He'd get a lawyer. He would, what? He arrived at the manicured lawn of their suburban mansion. It was a 2-hour trip on public transport, a journey he hadn't made in years. He was met not with an empty driveway, but with a nightmare. A large, garish "for sale" sign was hammered into the lawn. A high-end realtor he didn't recognize was showing the porch to a smiling couple. "Excuse me," Mark yelled, running up the walkway. "What the hell is this? This is my house." The realtor, a woman with a painted-on smile, held up a perfectly manicured hand. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. This is a private showing." "Private? I live here. Get off my property." The realtor's smile didn't waver. "According to the deed I have on file, this property is solely owned by the Starkweather Family Trust. Your name, Mr. Jennings, doesn't appear on it. Now please leave before I call the police." He'd been so arrogant, so sure of his community property lie, he'd never even checked the final deed. She'd played him from the very beginning. Defeated, he went to the only other place he could, Jessica's apartment, the one he'd been paying for. When he arrived, the door was ajar, and the sounds of frantic packing came from within. "Jess!" he cried, bursting in. She whirled around, her face stained with tears and rage. "You!" she shrieked. "You ruined me!" She threw a stiletto at his head. He ducked. "They fired me. They took my company car. They're auditing my expenses, all because of you." Mark was baffled. "Me? This was Sarah. She's the owner. She owns everything." Jessica let out a hysterical laugh. "And you didn't know? You idiot! I hitched my wagon to a dead horse. I thought you were a lion, Mark, a VP, a real man. But you're nothing. You're just a plaything, a pet she got tired of. Well, I'm not going down with you. Get out." She shoved him into the hallway and slammed the door, the deadbolt clicking shut. For 2 days, Mark slept on the subway, his suit wrinkled and stained. He'd sold his $2,000 watch for $150 to buy food. He was a ghost, invisible to the city he thought he was about to conquer. His phone on its last bar of battery buzzed. It was a text from a number he didn't recognize. It was a single image. It was the small, ugly watercolor of the gray coastline. It was now hanging on a vast, minimalist wall in a stunning penthouse office. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind it, the entire city skyline glittered. He recognized the view. It was the CEO's private office, the one no one, not even Peterson, had ever been allowed into. The painting, the one he'd called drab and tasteless, was the only thing adorning the wall. It was her prize. A second text came through. It was from Sarah. "I forgot to thank you, Mark, By kicking me out, you reminded me who I am. I was happy being a wife, but I was born to be a Starkweather. P.S. The leech just acquired the bank that holds all your personal loans from before we were married. They're due. All of them. Now. The phone died. Mark sank onto the cold park bench, the notification of his impending total bankruptcy glowing in his mind. He was fired. He was homeless. He was penniless. And he was in debt to her. The woman he'd called a useless leech had just proven she owned the entire ocean. He lowered his head into his hands, a hollow, broken man, as the cold night fell on the city she owned. 6 months later, the city was deep in the grip of an unforgiving winter. The man huddled in the line that snaked around the St. Jude's soup kitchen was unrecognizable as the proud VP who had once strode into the Starkweather Tower. His expensive suit was long gone, sold for a week's worth of food. He now wore a threadbare coat he'd found in a shelter donation bin, thin and useless against the biting wind. Mark Jennings was gaunt, his face covered in a patchy, unkempt beard, his eyes dull and hollow. He tried to find work, but the story of his firing and the subsequent lawsuits for his debts had made him toxic. No one would hire a man blacklisted by Sarah Starkweather. He'd heard what happened to Jessica. After being fired and sued by Starkweather Holdings for misuse of company funds, she'd declared bankruptcy. The last he'd heard, she was waitressing 2 towns over, living with her parents, her bright, bold future reduced to serving coffee. He almost envied her. As he shuffled forward, clutching his paper ticket, his gaze drifted up to the massive electronic ticker, scrolling across the building opposite the soup kitchen. He couldn't escape her. There, 10 feet high, was her face. The headline read, "Starkweather Shakeup a Success. CEO Sarah Starkweather named Business Leader of the Year after record Q4 profits." He watched as the digital image of her smiled, confident and serene, before it switched to an ad for a new car he could never dream of affording. He felt a familiar, sour bile rise in his throat. He had called her a leech. He had been the one sucking the life from her, and he hadn't even known it. He was the parasite, and she had finally and calmly burned him off. The line moved. He took his plastic bowl of watery soup and found a spot on the curb, invisible to the world. Miles above him in the CEO's penthouse office, Sarah Starkweather stood not by the window, but in front of the small, drab watercolor of the gray coastline. It was the only piece of art in the vast, minimalist room. Her chief counsel, Arthur Harrison, stood beside her. "The board has unanimously approved your green energy initiative, Ms. Starkweather," Arthur said, a rare hint of warmth in his voice. "Peterson and his team tried to table it for years. You got it passed in 2 months." "Peterson was a placeholder, Arthur. He was afraid to make waves," Sarah replied, her eyes on the painting. "You can't own an ocean and be afraid to make waves." "Indeed," Arthur said, "and the last of Mr. Jennings' defaulted assets have been seized. His debts are settled. He has nothing." Sarah was silent for a moment. She reached out and brushed an imaginary speck of dust from the painting's simple frame. She thought of the man who had ripped it from the wall, the man who had called her a useless leech, a failure, a beige woman. He had been so wrong. She wasn't the leech. She was the host, and she had finally stopped letting the parasite drain her. "Good," she said, her voice clear and steady. She turned away from the painting, her past, and faced the glittering city skyline that spread out before her like a map of her future. "Send in the acquisitions team, Arthur. It's time to expand."